Scary telling. I watched as my 4-year-old daughter, Sarah, approached me with her innocent eyes filled with curiosity. "Daddy, how do you spell tomato?" she asked, her voice so small and fragile. My mind was racing with work-related thoughts, deadlines, and stress. I couldn't be bothered with such trivial matters at the moment. "Not now, Sarah," I mumbled absent-mindedly, hoping she would understand. A flicker of disappointment crossed her face, but she quickly masked it with a forced smile. She nodded silently and walked away, her little shoulders drooping. I didn't spare a second glance, too absorbed in my own world to notice the emotional gap widening between us. It was just a simple question, one that held so much more beneath the surface. As I continued to rush through my morning routine, thoughts of Sarah's question lingered in the back of my mind. I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt, a twinge of remorse for brushing her off. But there was no time for remorse, not now. I had to get Sarah to school, drop her off, and then race to my workplace to tackle another demanding day. In the car, Sarah sat quietly in the back seat, her small voice breaking the silence. "Daddy, guess what? I'm going to be in a play at school." Her eyes sparkled with excitement, hoping for a moment of connection, a glimmer of interest from me. But I was too focused on the traffic, the clock ticking relentlessly, and my own mounting stress. "That's great, sweetheart," I replied absent-mindedly, my attention divided between the road and my racing thoughts. I couldn't even remember what character she was going to play, my mind too preoccupied with the weight of my responsibilities. Arriving at the school, I hurriedly unbuckled Sarah from her car seat, giving her a quick hug before urging her to join her classmates. She waved goodbye with a mix of anticipation and disappointment, hoping for more than just a rushed farewell. But my mind was already fixated on the looming workday, the tasks waiting for me, and the pressure to be on time. Work consumed me from the moment I stepped through the office doors. It was a never-ending stream of deadlines, phone calls, and meetings. The hours blurred together, and I didn't even have a chance to check my phone until after the chaotic lunch rush had subsided. I unlocked my phone, and there it was, 4 missed calls and multiple voicemails, all from the school. Panic surged through me as I frantically listened to the principal's message. Her voice trembled with sorrow and urgency as she explained that Sarah had been in a serious accident and had been rushed to the hospital. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. Without a second thought, I bolted from my desk, leaving my bewildered coworkers behind. My boss called out to me, questioning my sudden departure, but all I managed to mutter was, "My daughter, she's hurt. They don't think she'll make it." Breathless and disoriented, I rushed out of the office, my only focus on reaching my daughter's side. As I arrived at the hospital, my legs felt weak, unable to bear the weight of my anguish. The principal was waiting there, her aged face etched with both sorrow and disappointment. I barely registered her words as she explained the chain of events that led to Sarah's untimely fate. She told me how Sarah, in her innocence, had taken it upon herself to walk home alone and retrieve her forgotten bag. The school's attempts to reach me had gone unanswered, as Sarah had somehow known that I wouldn't be available. It was during her solitary walk that a drunk and reckless truck driver plowed into her, not even stopping to see if she was all right. The realization hit me like a sledgehammer. My negligence, my absence at a time when Sarah needed me the most, had cost her life. Tears streamed down my face as guilt and regret enveloped me completely. How could I have let this happen? How could I have failed my own daughter so profoundly? I can't forgive myself. The weight of my actions, or lack thereof, crushes me, a heavy burden I will carry for the rest of my life. The bond between a father and his child, once tenuous, now shattered beyond repair. As I stand in that sterile hospital corridor, consumed by grief and self-loathing, I can only wonder if there's any chance for redemption or forgiveness in the wake of such a tragic loss. I stumbled out of the hospital, my mind spinning with grief and guilt. The weight of Sarah's tragic death bore down on me, every step feeling like an eternity. It was as if the world had turned gray, drained of all color and joy. I couldn't escape the haunting realization that I had failed my daughter when she needed me the most. The drive home was a blur, the streets passing by in a haze of tears and regret. Memories of Sarah flooded my thoughts, her infectious laughter, her tiny hand clutching mine as we walked together, the warmth of her hugs. How could I have been so blind to the importance of those moments? How could I have let my work consume me to the point where my own daughter's cries for attention went unheard? Arriving at our once vibrant home, I was greeted by the deafening silence that now haunted every corner. Sarah's toys lay untouched, her laughter absent from the air. The house was filled with remnants of her presence, a constant reminder of the precious life that was cruelly taken away. Days turned into a monotonous routine of sorrow. The weight of Sarah's absence pressed upon me, threatening to suffocate any semblance of normalcy. The world continued to move around me, but I was trapped in a perpetual state of grief, unable to escape the relentless agony that gripped my heart. The guilt gnawed at me relentlessly, each passing moment fueling the fire of self-blame. I replayed the missed opportunities, the dismissive responses, and the moments I chose work over my daughter. The pain of my own shortcomings was like a knife twisting in my chest, a constant reminder of the irreparable damage I had caused. The walls of the house became my prison, the echoes of Sarah's laughter haunting my every step. I couldn't bear the silence anymore. Desperate for solace, I found myself seeking solace in Sarah's room, surrounded by her cherished belongings. I buried my face in her favorite stuffed animal, desperately inhaling the faint scent of her innocence, hoping it would somehow bring her back to me. But no amount of reminiscing could fill the void in my shattered heart. I yearned for the chance to hold her again, to tell her how sorry I was, to make things right. The weight of regret became suffocating, a heavy cloak I couldn't escape. I had failed as a father, as a protector, and as someone who was supposed to keep her safe. It was during those long, sleepless nights that I became haunted by vivid nightmares. Visions of Sarah's accident played on an endless loop, each time more horrifying than the last. I would jolt awake, covered in cold sweat, my heart racing as I relived the moment I received the news of her death. It was a torment that seemed never-ending, a punishment I couldn't escape. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months. The world continued to move forward, but I was trapped in my own personal hell. The weight of Sarah's absence never lifted, a heavy fog that enveloped every aspect of my existence. I became a shell of the person I once was, consumed by grief and guilt. Yet, amidst the darkness, a flicker of something stirred within me, a burning desire for justice. The realization that the truck driver responsible for Sarah's death was out there, living freely, added fuel to the fire of my anguish. The anger simmered beneath the surface, mingling with the pain until it became an all-consuming rage. Driven by an insatiable need for closure, I began to immerse myself in the investigation surrounding Sarah's accident. I pored over every detail, every report, desperate to uncover any shred of information that would lead me to the person who had robbed me of my precious daughter. No stone would be left unturned. I was determined to make them pay for their reckless actions. As I delved deeper into the case, a newfound determination grew within me. The grief transformed into a relentless pursuit of justice, my singular focus guiding me through the darkness. The shattered fragments of my life now had a purpose: to find the person responsible and ensure they faced the consequences of their actions. The basement became my sanctuary, a place where my grief and rage intertwined. Its dimly lit confines provided a refuge from the outside world, shielding me from the judgment and pity that awaited beyond those walls. In that secluded space, I could fully immerse myself in my quest for retribution. I had meticulously planned every detail, channeling my anguish into a twisted form of justice. The basement, once a storage space for forgotten items, transformed into a chamber of despair. The air hung heavy with the scent of desperation and blood, as if the very essence of my torment had seeped into the walls. Bound by ropes, the truck driver, the one who had stolen my daughter's life, sat before me. His eyes widened with terror, a reflection of the fear that gripped his heart. I relished in his suffering, a sadistic satisfaction blossoming within me. This was the price he would pay for the pain he had inflicted upon us. I stepped closer, my footsteps resonating in the eerie silence. The knife gleamed in my hand, its cold steel a symbol of my determination. I traced the letters of tomato with the blade, each stroke etching a scar into the truck driver's flesh. The pain he felt mirrored my own, a twisted symmetry of vengeance and catharsis. With every incision, a twisted mantra played in my mind. Each letter became a message, a desperate plea to Sarah for forgiveness. I hoped that in carving those letters into his skin, I could somehow alleviate the guilt that plagued me, that I could bridge the gap between the living and the dead. The truck driver's screams reverberated through the basement, blending with my own anguished cries. The pain inflicted upon him became a perverse representation of the pain I carried within me. The lines between victim and perpetrator blurred, a grotesque dance of retribution and self-punishment. Outside, the world continued to turn. The police had been alerted to my actions, their presence looming just beyond the confines of the basement door. They threatened to break through, to bring an end to my macabre symphony. But I relished in their pursuit, knowing that the final act was approaching, that soon I would be free. The surrounding sirens grew louder, their shrill cries echoing in my ears. The police were closing in, their determination unwavering. I welcomed their intrusion, knowing that their arrival would grant me the release I so desperately craved. As the door burst open, light flooded the basement, illuminating the grotesque scene before them. I stood there, a madman driven by grief and vengeance, surrounded by the lifeless bodies of both the truck driver and myself. The air was heavy with the stench of blood and regret, the culmination of a tragic tale that had spiraled into darkness. The police officers, their faces a mask of horror and disbelief, cautiously approached the twisted tableau. Their words of command and concern blended into a cacophony of noise, distant echoes that barely registered in my mind. I had achieved what I had set out to do, for better or worse. As consciousness waned and the darkness enveloped me, a sense of peace washed over my battered soul. In death, I would find solace, a chance to reunite with Sarah. I closed my eyes, embracing the void, the echo of her laughter the last sound to fill my ears.